In introducing Seth, I told you were going to hear from the second keynote speaker and how amazing it was going to be, and it was. But what I didn't tell you is we were saving the best speaker until now. It's time to hear from our fearless leader. As president of Students for Life of America, she has spent more than 16 years building a national network of more than 1,400 student-led groups across all 50 states, layering campus activism with political engagement through Students for Life Action, which she also heads. With the Students for Life team, many of whom are here in this room or are joining us online on the live stream, she has launched many powerful initiatives to mobilize pro-life activists. Some of them are represented on the tables here at the back of the room. This school year, her team will have 1 million conversations with Gen Z, those being targeted by the abortion industry, and between 10 to 20% of those they reach will be converted to a pro-life position. Each year, she tirelessly crisscrosses our nation, speaking on college campuses and addressing pro-life audiences, and video clips of her speaking tours have been viewed tens of millions of times. She hosts the wildly popular Explicitly Pro-Life podcast. I love the name, and only she would have a podcast called Explicitly Pro-Life. And she regularly appears in all the major media outlets, including the New York Times, the Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, Newsweek, NPR, every major television network, and the Babylon Bee. She gives the pro-life generation and all of us a powerful voice. And on a personal note, she is one of my heroes. She's a dear friend. There is no one in the pro-life movement who works more tirelessly to advocate for this cause. And that's why I was so tremendously blessed. On June 24th, 2022, the day the United States Supreme Court handed down the Dobbs decision, she had the honor of announcing on the Supreme Court steps the reversal of Roe versus Wade, and then she was spotlighted on the front page of the New York Times above the fold under the headline, Roe Overturned. She is one of the major reasons Roe has been overturned. Please join me in welcoming the president of Students for Life, Kristen Hawkins.
You know, first of all, David loves the podcast name because he named it. I don't know if he remembers that. I normally begin presentations sharing a story of courage, of sacrifice, or hope that some person, some groups of people in our history displayed, resulting in transformational change. Engaging in some sort of campaign, refusing to yield, even when the victory for the other side was all but assured. But tonight I want to change it up a little bit and do something different, or maybe not so different, because I want to share with you the story of us, Students for Life and the pro-life generation. 17 years ago, I was given an incredible opportunity to launch Students for Life, knowing we had to go straight where the abortion industry was strongest, right where culture is being formed, where we know movements are recruited and made, college campuses. That's because I knew that the end of Roe, at that moment, our movement would need a trained army, one that was spread out in all 50 states, ready to lead the charge for whatever came next. So we could accomplish our goal of abolishing abortion, seeing it made illegal and unthinkable in our lifetime. But I remember not long after we launched, one of our first swanky fundraisers in Manhattan. It was at the Harbor Club. I'm pretty sure we'll never be invited back there again. We brought our defund Planned Parenthood pink van and parked it out front just so everyone knew where we were at. So that will never happen again. But after that event, it was beautiful. We honored a U.S. Senator. We had Eric Metaxas there. I was wearing a dress for the first time in forever. And a friend of mine actually pulled me aside, a mentor of mine, and said, I love the program. The students are great. You guys have so much passion. But you really should dial the rhetoric back, talking about when Roe versus Wade's going to be reversed, saying things like, we're going to abolish abortion. Because no one's going to actually take your organization seriously when you say these things that we all know aren't going to happen. I could have played it safe, and I think I might have called my good friend David B. Wright to ask for his advice after that meeting. I could have listened to his advice, his very well-meaning advice. But instead, I stubbornly marched our army forward. That march led me all the way to the steps of the Supreme Court this June. It was an honor to be with so many of our student pro-life leaders like Olivia Grace, who wants to work in pro-life politics, i.e. she wants me to hire her, so Students for Life needs more funding because I have to hire her. I keep creating problems for myself like this. It was such an honor to be surrounded with amazing student leaders, courageous student leaders, to be the one to read those words. The Constitution does not confer a right to abortion. Roe and Casey are overruled. It was along the way on the battlefield of our nation's college and high school campuses, at our state capitals, that a newly minted 21-year-old with absolutely no business experience had to learn how to grow a small ragtag group of student volunteers into the pro-life generation. Today, Students for Life of America and Students for Life Action, along with our initiatives at the Dimitri Institute for Pro-Life Advancement, StandingWithYou.org, our campaign for abortion-free cities, we have nearly 100 full-time serving staff, the heroes of the generation, who've now been entrusted to steward more than $20 million of your hard-earned dollars every year. Because of the sacrifices that each of our team members have agreed to make in order to serve with us, whether it's lesser paying jobs, don't tell them they're worth so much more, weeks away from their families, exhausting days, community mobilizations, door knocking resulting in frostbite, dehydration, and sunburn, sometimes all at the same time. I got sunburn today out on the streets with our students. Enduring assaults and threats of violence on campuses. Because of them, there are now more than 1,400 active Students for Life groups in all 50 states. As David mentioned, more than 165,000 trained, more than 21 million in-kind volunteer service to our movement each year, more than $160 million of earned media attention. As you can tell, I kind of ensure our team measures a lot of our lead indicators at Students for Life. As we fight the battles I know we must win in order to accomplish our goal of abolishing abortion. I'm constantly measuring the number of our groups, the quality scores of all of the groups, how many mobilizations we can host, how quickly we can turn young people out and convince them not to go to class, instead go to Tallahassee with us on Tuesday instead. If you haven't signed up and you're a student, I expect you to meet me there. I'm constantly looking at those numbers. But I've found that seeing the lag indicators, those that tell us whether or not we're truly progressing towards our goal of transforming culture, creating an entire generation of pro-life leaders who will transform the country to reject the violence of abortion, those lag indicators sometimes can be difficult when measuring culture change. However, in recent months, they've been there everywhere I look. On any given day, our regional coordinators and Students for Life groups on dozens of campuses are having conversations. As David mentioned, we'll have 1 million conversations in person and online this school year. Informed by the research from our Dimitri Institute, I just found out last night, we're changing the minds of 19% of young people we meet on college campuses. 20% on that. And we're activating 43% of young people who we reach, those who are most targeted by the abortion industry. Activating them to join our army, to show them that they too can serve and have an important role in this mission, whether it's on their campus, or if it's in their community, or if it's at their state house. On campuses, our student leaders, they're working hard to challenge Planned Parenthood. At every Christian college in America, we ranked them. We wanted to find out where our Christian colleges stood with supporting Planned Parenthood. We found 1 in 8 had a relationship. 1 in 8. So we got to work, and within a year, we saw a third cut their tie with the abortion Goliath. With our Standing With You initiative, we helped more than 34 of these Christian schools move from an F ranking in our Dimitri Institute report to an A+ ranking, meaning now they not only have zero ties with the abortion industry, but they're actively promoting the local pro-life pregnancy centers. You've seen more than 60 campuses in the past 3 years end their discriminatory policies that were leading women to think abortion was their only option. In communities, our Campaign for Abortion-Free Cities is working in 24 select towns. In fact, Naples is one of those select towns. Going door to door, computer to computer, educating women and neighbors about high-quality pregnancy centers like you all are so fortunate to have here in Naples at community pregnancy clinics. They didn't pay me for that at all. I'm just a proud supporter. We're so honored to be able to partner with pregnancy centers like CPCI to promote them out into the community. Because one thing we've learned in knocking doors in 24 neighborhoods surrounding abortion facilities in the past 2 years is 75% of our neighbors don't know what a pregnancy center is or that they even exist. This work has been transformative. We've seen more than 100 churches step up and join us in this fight. In Port Charlotte, where my camper's at, my family's at right now, we saw the abortion facility shut down. In Rochester, New York, one of the most liberal places in America, we saw Planned Parenthood blocked from building a brand new facility. We've seen 8 abortion facilities now go under state investigation after we focus. More than 3,000 women have been directly connected to the local pregnancy centers. We've reached 120,000 homes for only 70 cents a door knock. That's a bargain, by the way, if you're into grassroots politics. A bargain. And we're changing minds of young people in those cities. Now, Naples is a little harder because there's not as many younger people to target. But it's about 29 cents per young person conversion. 29 cents. Naples is killing me. I was like over $1. I had to go into Fort Myers. At our state houses in our college in Capitol Hill, our sister political organization, Students for Life Action, it's a little confusing, they have both the same name. We flipped the script at state houses, refusing to negotiate with ourselves. We started training and turning out young pro-life activists, more than 55%, who've never been involved in politics and quite frankly, don't ever want to be involved in politics, and said, this is a place you must serve. Now, 83% of those kids, of the thousands we've trained, have said they will always stay involved in pro-life political activity. Those kids are going out, and they're leaders at their state houses. They're often the only pro-life voices there testifying. We've testified more than 100 times in the past 3 years at state houses with lobby days. And the legislators are shocked to find out that this whole group of beautiful young women isn't with Planned Parenthood, they're with us. But we've refused to take the option from the kids menu to have pro-life legislators tell us what we were going to be happy with. We saw our Life at Conception Act passed and signed into law in Arkansas and Oklahoma last year, preventing every single abortion, refusing to allow folks to put exceptions in those laws to say certain children should be able to be aborted because of the circumstances of their conception. And less than 48 hours ago, after 2 years of effort, literal frostbite we had last week, at door knocking, 2 years of effort, primary elections, general elections in Wyoming of all places. The Wyoming legislature finally passed the nation's first ever Chemical Abortion Prevention Act. This is significant. I know you may think it's Wyoming, but Wyoming had very few abortion protections and is one of the most targeted states, but by the abortion industry because it's so rural for chemical abortion. You would not believe what we had to do to fight to make that possible. And you can't forget that there hasn't been a week since the Dobbs decision leak where the mainstream media has not attempted to shine a very bright spotlight on our mission and our success, hoping we'll become a target for the left to attack. One thing they don't know about me is that their attacks are the best compliments we can receive. By the way, if you're on Stars, check out the new pro-abortion documentary, Battleground. It's the best thing I've ever seen for marketing Students for Life. It's unbelievable the attention that they've tried to shine onto us to intimidate us into silence. But you see, even those who advocate for the violence of abortion recognize that while we may be relatively young, and we have certainly had our opportunities to fail forward, our gritty, innovative, fast-moving team at Students for Life is determined to win this war. While we're assuring that no student and no pregnant mother stands alone on college campus, we're engaging strategically, recruiting and activating an army on campuses and online who will drive our culture. Then we mobilize them in the community at the State House to attack the abortion industry, to promote the nonviolent healthcare alternatives, to elect and persuade our elected officials to actually take a stand. And then we transform them into a pro-life first voter, into an activist, into a leader for the rest of their lives. You've met them here tonight. For as we knew going into this post-Roe era, the battleground is larger than it's ever been before. And the life and death stakes are higher, much higher. As you can imagine, my role at Students for Life has shifted quite a bit since launching 17 years ago. I went from executive director, accountant, janitor, IT rep, and field director to just the president. I see myself and my role very much like a general. I can't be on every battlefield constantly, and my staff doesn't want me to because I'm old. I'm 37, so I'm not even young enough. But I'm constantly moving from field to field, to campus. You've seen the videos of when I do go on campuses, constantly assessing the threats our organization and our movement will face. Because the crazy arguments that we hear on campuses, the things that happen to our student leaders, I know will be mainstream in just a matter of months. So as you can imagine, I can share quite a long list with you tonight of challenges. And I wrote it all out and I had to cut it back, so you're lucky. From the violence and discrimination that pregnancy centers are facing, that Students for Life groups are facing, the death threats that our Students for Life action team just received for daring to hold a community political workshop in Omaha, Nebraska, of all places. These are serious threats. I mean, now we have to be careful about scary Latin mass attendees. Could be white nationalists, according to our government. These are serious threats. So we laugh and we joke about them. I know that Babylon Bee certainly had the field day with that one. But they're serious. They're serious so much now that I have to travel into college campuses with armed guards. I had to hire an entire legal team this year for the first time in our history at Students for Life because we had so many legal cases coming in. Our pro bono attorneys couldn't even handle the caseload. But we have to refuse to retreat from the complacency that some in our movement now feel, thinking because Roe has fallen, we can now slow down or be silent. Just a few weeks ago, we were at the sold-out National Pro-Life Summit, the March for Life. I was meeting some incredible young people who I'll tell you about here in a second. But I heard these heartbreaking sentences of, I'm so glad I was here for the last March for Life. My bishop said, we don't have to come back anymore. Friends, the pro-life movement was made because for decades, bishops, priests, pastors, Catholic, non-Catholic Christian schools bus kids into Washington, D.C. And they may not have learned every way how to defend their pro-life beliefs, but they knew they were part of a movement larger than themselves. They knew this was a movement that was going places, that was winning, and they knew they needed to do something to end abortion. That those sacrifices created the pro-life generation we have the honor to meet. We have the honor to train. We have the honor to mobilize and send out. We've got to refuse to become complacent. We also have to look at the shocking lack of concern those in power in Washington, D.C. right now have for the conscience rights of our business owners, of our medical personnel, and every American. We have to refuse to allow them to take our freedoms of speech and conscience. I can go on, as you can imagine. But I have two key marching orders I want to share with you tonight. Two things I've shared with our team just in the past few weeks. Two marching orders I've given our student leaders as the most significant challenges we face and where we must engage. First, we must stop the proliferation of dangerous chemical abortion pills that kill more than 500,000 children in America each year and is the leading cause of death of children, harms mom, and we know harms our environment. And I'm not talking about Plan B, an over-the-counter high-dose birth control that's supposed to suppress ovulation and conception from occurring, but sometimes ends human life. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about RU486, the pharmaceutical cocktail whose sole job is to end the beating heart of a living human being in the womb by first starving them and then expelling them into the toilet, allowing chemically tainted blood, pregnancy tissue, and human remains to go into our waterways. We've been polluting our waterways for 22 years with the bodies of these children, harming the fertility of our aquatic and farm life. I was in Bonita Springs today at the farmer's market. That's where I got this nice little sunburn. Walking up to folks with tap water, asking them if they were thirsty and they'd like to drink some tap water that might have some chemically tainted pharmaceutical drugs inside of it. Surprisingly, nobody wanted my water. It was shocking. These pills can do serious damages to mothers. Serious damages, jeopardizing their own health, their own fertility. They have a 4 times higher complication rate than surgical abortion, a 10 times higher death rate than surgical abortions. And thanks to President Biden's weaponization of the FDA, these pills are now available via pharmacy at your local Walgreens, Rite Aid, or CVS, where anyone, even sex predators, can pick them up if they get a prescription, which is why we held 50 protests outside of neighborhood pharmacies today. Make no mistake, if the abortion advocate who plays our HHS secretary, Javier Becerra, has his way, every pharmacist in America will soon have to dispense these drugs. And then it will only be a matter of time before they will be over the counter and paid for taxpayer dollars, just like what they've done with Plan B. It only took them 4 years. From you may dispense to you will put on your shelves. If this happens, it would dramatically, not only dramatically increase the number of children we lose every year to the violence of abortion, but it will normalize abortion into our culture in a way that Planned Parenthood has only ever dreamed. We can't let this happen. At Students for Life, we've been leading the charge on this for more than 6 years because we saw this happening in California with attorney generals' meetings. You heard Vice President Pence talk about 20 AGs writing a letter. Yeah, there's going to be more coming. We've had state laws introduced in West Virginia requiring that at the very minimum, if you're going to give out life-ending drugs, you should at least collect the human remains and properly dispense of these human remains. In Wyoming, we totally banned it. We've got federal efforts, citizen petitions, grassroots campaigns. Every single tour stop this spring that Andy, our Florida Regional Coordinator, our team members will be doing is called This is Chemical Abortion, and it's changing minds at a pace we didn't even ever expect. And perhaps the most innovative strategy yet, which means that's a word for I can't disclose what we're doing. We're using state and federal water and endangered species laws and other environmental regulation enforcement, and we're hiring big law. Respected former EPA lawyers have joined us in this fight, We're hiring a team of experienced litigators, and we're launching a $5 million litigation capital campaign this month. We'll see how the left reacts to that. Second, in order to combat the dramatic rise in misinformation, the rampant social media censorship that Seth has already talked about, in order to target the demographic, the only demographic that Republicans failed to win this November, who were largely credited with ensuring the red tsunami had never reached our shores, we had to double down. We're doubling down. We're launching 5 years for every campus plan, ensuring that Students for Life by 2028 has a presence at every four-year college campus in America, all 2,675. Next school year, we will begin spending $3.1 million in 9 key states that we know will be also crucial in 2024. You might recognize these states: Florida, North Carolina, Ohio, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Georgia, Minnesota, New Hampshire. Starting groups at 560 campuses. We've never done this before. Here in Florida, it means we have to raise $540,800 for next school year so we can hire at least 3 additional team members to serve alongside Andy. Andy needs help. Raise your hand, Andy. Engaging in this $500,000 campaign will ensure we get presences at all 128 four-year campuses next year. I know launching, and I had to tell myself this, I know launching these 2 massive campaigns are going to require our team to raise, I've been adding it up in my head, $8 million, more in funds than we already have scheduled to spend on top of our current team, on top of our current programs. I know it sounds like a massive challenge, just like how seeing Roe versus Wade reverse once seemed like an insurmountable challenge. But I can't ignore the moment that we're in. The battlefield is larger than it's ever been before. The skirmishes that we fight are vicious, especially on our college campuses. And the weapons, the new weapons, the counterattacks that are being hurled at this generation and our movement come every single day. As a student of history, I know there were small, courageous decisions that every justice movement, every just war that were needed to determine the fate of that mission or that war. There's small actions that individuals took. Courageous actions, courageous decisions. It's usually a choice when you look back in history. It's a choice by one or two to lean back or fall forward, to take an incredible personal risk or play it safe, to play nice with those in power, or to create the social tension needed to demand real change. I often think about the moment, the heart-wrenching moment where the decision where Mother Till decided not to close the casket of her baby boy Emmett after he was tortured and drowned for supposedly whistling to a white woman in northern Mississippi. I think about that one decision that grieving mother made, which Rosa Parks said she had on her mind the day she refused to give up her seat in Montgomery, which led then 4 students with no connections and no political expertise in Greensboro to sit at a whites-only lunch counter on a Sunday afternoon, which then inspired thousands. Just one decision by one grieving mother. So I think the decision we have before us tonight is, do we fall back? Do we say, oh, it's too hard, there's somewhat of a recession, there's inflation, we have all of these political obstacles against us? Do we hide in our bunkers? Or do we rush into the battlefield, knowing that there is not really a playbook for where we're going? Some in this audience have already rushed there. Caitlin Rook, our Students for Life Action Montana captain, who started Students for Life group in her high school, had a bit of legal trouble, we got it fixed. Then she said, that was easy. Now I'm going to run for state office. This year was the youngest candidate in America running for state office and almost won to an 18-year veteran, only lost by 300 votes, which means she's got him next time. Maddie Schulte. Many of you know Maddie Schulte. Many of you don't know Maddie came to our summit after being dragged, I think, by her diocese in St. Paul to the March for Life, committed herself to the pro-life movement, joined us in high school, also had a little bit of trouble at her high school. There's a theme here. Went to college, was so excellent, we decided, we have to hire you now. I can't risk anybody else ever having you, who now leads our entire development team at Students for Life. Angelique Clark, the girl with the painted dress. Angelique also had trouble in her high school in Las Vegas. We had to sue her school to allow her group to get started, who then has now launched a new pro-life organization, Life Dress, which is one of our incubated organizations this year, has gone to Africa, has gone to Central America, educating young people, using art, changing hearts and minds. And there's so many more that aren't even here tonight. A little girl, Juanita, that I met from Toledo, Ohio, came with her diocese to the National Pro-Life Summit just a few weeks ago, who came up to me with a handwritten letter to President Biden and handed me a 40 Days for Life pen and asked, would you be the 137th signer to my petition? I've written a letter to President Biden asking why he won't save babies. To the 20-year-old girl, I never got her name because I thought she was going to hit me. Found out she wasn't. To the 20-year-old girl, she was an atheist who came up barreling at me at the March for Life, scaring my bodyguards, and then said, I'm here. I saw one of your videos on social media. I'm a proud atheist. I'm a liberal. I'm a Democrat. But what you said makes sense. So I even came with this church group from Charlottesville all the way up here to be here at the March for Life. The kids were like, atheists for not very long. To my friend Megan, who was one of the very first students I had the honor to work with in Sacramento, who because of her courage to start her group on her campus, Sac State, got to meet a girl the first day she was out there with our staff, Jessica, who had just had her abortion. Jessica, who after starting a friendship with her, came back to her when she was pregnant again. And after everyone told her to have the abortion, even her pastor, Megan said, Jessica, you don't have to do this. Megan, who's godmother to baby Stefan. You see, there's an entire army. I get very self-conscious when I get accolades, you stand up to applaud me, because you're not applauding me. There's an entire army, the pro-life generation, these heroes that you support at Students for Life and Students for Life Action. You've created them. You've launched them. And I want you to know they are 100% all in. They are all in to finish what our heroes in the original, we call them the OG, pro-life gen, started. Leaders like Jack Wilkie, Joe Schuyler, my hero Phyllis Schlafly. The work that they started before our generation was even conceived, they're all in to see abortion made unthinkable, illegal, and abolished throughout our land. I hope you know that. And I know the opposition that we're up against can feel overwhelming at times. I certainly feel it myself. But thinking about the tens of thousands of babies who have been born already, do you know we were just blamed for a diaper shortage in Texas? Thinking about the tens of thousands of babies who will be born, or have been born this year, just thinking about these precious human beings who are spared the slaughter and the violence, their mothers who were actually empowered to choose both. I have to say, I agree with General Eisenhower and his charge to the young men who were tasked with just holding the line at the Battle of the Bulge, just holding the line to ensure Hitler's army would suffer its final defeat. He wrote to them, "Men, the present situation is regarded as one of opportunity for us, not of disaster." Thank you.